Hey guys, my name is Ryan Neal, and I'm reading Vampire Line Volume 1, The Warm Neighborhood by Grant and Mary Workman. The bones were cold and felt old, but I knew they were old. They were mine. Rejuvenation had been long this time, and I was not myself yet. Feeling the last rays of the sun sinking behind the horizon, I thought about moving from the shade of the deep-set porch. It was late January, and the air was bitter, with damp moisture hidden in its gusts. From my porch, it was an easy study of the area. This place was quiet, which helped when moving around again after being down a long time. It was easier in an out-of-the-way neighborhood with warm, helpful people. These people had no idea that I was around. If they had known, they would likely have run. The thought made me grin, because running wouldn't help. Grinning hurt my old jawbone, and that soured my mood. Not that my mood was good, it just got worse. When you'd been down as long as I had, the world moved forward, and you forgot how to be in it. Your bones grew very dry. I know mine needed a good wetting. The rays of the sunlight lingered, touching the moisture on the leaf-barren tree branches, having a prism effect like hundreds of tiny diamonds. It was time to move. I needed to move, actually wanted to, and stepped out into the wind. The powers that be laughed as they pushed their cooling night air harder at me. My suit jacket was worn, slacks were thin, and shoes were still wet. That was another thing about being down for a long time. As you slept, your clothes failed you. I stepped further away from the doorway. There was a car running somewhere up the street, which meant people. Warm people. Listening until the direction was known took a minute. Then I started walking. The engine was old and had a lifter knocking, calling me to my left. I walked the concrete path from the porch to the public sidewalk. Darkening skies promised snow before the night was over. Snow is a hated thing with me. Once you got cold, you never quite got warm again. Not for long, anyway. And the snow also left tracks. I would rather that it rained, but it was cold either way. A few houses down, still listening to the tapper lifter, a dog barked and charged me. It was behind a fence you could repair, so it could not reach me. Continuing to move forward, I heard the dog's master bark orders for it to return. He yelled some kind of an apology about not seeing me before he let the animal out to do its business. I managed an over-the-shoulder wave, but did not look around at the beast or the dog. I studied my hands in front of me. Both were thin, which made the fingers appear even longer. My long fingers used to be meaty and weak, unlike now. It came to me that I should get gloves. The engine was ahead of me. I continued my trek while listening to the tap, tap, tap of the lifter getting closer. The engine fought, trying its best to warm up, and eventually warm the person operating the car. Moving forward, the vehicle came into sight. The hot air from the exhaust hitting the cold night air was creating its own thin fog bank. Fog was good, even with the cold. Two people, a man and a woman, could be seen standing near the car, but they were still so far away. Keep moving. Just keep moving. Keep walking. And I did. After they kissed, their conversation could be heard about, "I'll see you in the morning, and you be careful." I quickened my pace, but my bones just did not move fast enough. They were not wet enough. The car door opened and closed a second later. I was closer, but not there yet. The car ground into gear like the person behind the wheel had never before touched a manual transmission. The car lunged forward and out of the driveway. The man stood and watched the vehicle disappear up the street and around a corner, the lifter tapping the entire distance. He turned and stared back toward his house and noticed me in his peripheral vision. Noticed me, but ignored me. That was his mistake. Not that he had a chance even had he turned to face me. He walked to his front door, opened it, then heard my wet shoes behind him. Now he turned. I grabbed his full face in my bone-thin right hand and forced him to his tiptoes and backward into his house. We both tripped over the doorstep and crashed to the floor in his hallway. As we hit, I smacked his head on the carpeted floor, which slightly dazed him. With me almost completely on top, it was no trouble to reach out with my foot and kick the door closed. He grabbed my throat with his right hand as he pulled at my right hand with his left. My palm covered his mouth, and as he pulled at my hand, he was able to groan just a bit louder. He was fighting. They almost all do. I curled my bony fingers until my hardened nails were through his skin and stopped against the facial bones. He screamed harder, as much as he could, anyway. I lifted his head up and smacked it against the floor again. Damn carpet, I cursed. The floor carpeting took some of the impact out of the hit. He still fought me, deciding finally to try hitting me in the face with his fist. Baring my teeth, I laughed at him, then beat his head several more times on the carpeted floor. This confused him enough to force his left arm out of my way and pulled his head hard to one side so I could sink my sharp canine teeth into his neck. My teeth cut into the flesh with ease and found the warm blood waiting there. There were warm people in this neighborhood, friendly, helpful people. I drank and could feel his strength to fight fading. His heart was beating slower. At this point, it was not needed to hold him to sufficiently wet my bone. He was not a small man, which enabled me to feast on his strength. While doing so, I heard the tap, tap, tap of the lifter from the old engine. The car pulled back into the driveway and the driver got out. Her footsteps announced that she was headed back to the house. He would cool soon, making the need to stop for her darken my mood. I stood up and moved to just behind the door, as it would soon be swinging open. The doorknob rattled, the handle turned, and the door opened. "Hey honey, you forgot to lock the door," the woman said as she entered. She stepped in, and before she noticed the man, I seized her blonde hair and slammed her head into the wall. She was unconscious at once. I closed and locked the front door, looked down at the unconscious pair of nice, warm people, and decided a quick look through the rest of the house was called for. There didn't need to be any more surprises. I stepped over the warm people and walked to the back of the house. Straight back was the living room. Just beyond that was the kitchen, not big, but the house was not large either. In the kitchen, there were several thick dish towels and the electrical cords off the toaster and coffee maker, which would suit my needs. The back door exited from the kitchen into the backyard. Almost full dark had fallen, which was visible from the kitchen window. The hated, track-leaving snow had started falling. The bolt on the back door was in place. The kitchen table had been set for 2 people, a good indicator that my 2 warm people lived alone, just the 2 of them. On the table, amongst the clutter of last night's dinner, was a full cup of coffee. I remembered coffee, and decided from the smell of the coffee that hot tea was better. It did work out well for me that they had just eaten. They lasted longer that way. Exiting the kitchen, there was a bathroom to the right. At the front of the house were the bedrooms. One was clearly for storage, and the other was their bedroom. The living room had sturdy built furniture from the look and feel of it. I headed back to my warm people, pulling a lamp electrical cord free also. She was groggy and waking up, so I stuffed a dishcloth into her mouth and secured it with one of my electrical cords before dragging her to a chair in the living room. It was proven best to tie her feet together to the left chair leg, then tie her hands together to the right arm of the chair. This put her body at a slight twist and gave her a less powerful position against her struggling to get free. She would wake soon and try to fight me. She could not do that now. The man ended up on the living room coffee table. The table was covered in magazines that I pushed off onto the floor before snapping 2 legs from one end of the table and placing the man's head on the downslope side angle of the table. As I was finishing up, the woman stirred, woke up, and looked at the man. She screamed into the gag, but her voice was muffled. I had my 2 warm people secured and had time to take my time and feast. The incline had increased blood flow to the brain, causing the man to twitch. It was a spasm, nothing more, but the woman screamed all the harder. With a look from me to the woman, terror filled her eyes. Be quiet and don't scream. You can't anyways. I motioned for her to be quiet with a finger pressed against my lips. She screamed into the gag. It wasn't loud, so it was to be ignored for now. The man was still warm, but cooling. Blood oozed out of the earlier punctures. The liquid would not go to waste, as it would get licked from the wound before I sank my teeth in again, feeding until he cooled and his heart stopped. With my eyes closed, I stayed seated on my knees next to the man's corpse on the table in front of me. My bones were old, but they were wet and warm again. They did not feel old right now. From there, I simply sat still, not moving, not breathing, not thinking, just being warm. She tried screaming again, but still not hard enough to penetrate the dishcloth in her mouth. Little noise escaped the heavy cloth gag. To inhale was almost like breathing for us, not quite though. It was warmth, even if it did not last. I opened my eyes and looked at her. Tears rolled down her pale-skinned face with her eyes fixed on me. We stared back at one another for a long time, till the skies outside caught my attention. The shades on the windows reported that night had dropped its full curtain. There would be a lot of snow tonight. Cold, track-creating snow. People were warm, and it was always good to be warm. I looked to the woman. Do you believe I would hurt you? She nodded furiously. Good. Obey me, and I will not. I lied, and she knew it, but she had no choice. Time to move. The chair was easier to break apart than it was to untie her from it. I broke the leg of the chair and repeated the process with the chair arm to free her hands. With my fingers wrapped in the thick winter coat she still wore, we relocated to the master bedroom at the front of the house, closing and locking the door behind us. My bones were old, but right now they did not feel that way. The phone on the nightstand rang. She and I watched it as if we expected more, or in her case, hoped for more. After several rings, the answering machine message came on and we listened. Hey Sally, you're late. Taking a sick day, I take it? I'll have someone stay over and cover for you. Say hey to Big Mike. We'll work at next week's schedule tomorrow. Night. Sal. The man on the other end of the phone hung up. I climbed onto the bed with Sally in tow. People are warm, and I wrapped my body around hers. She shivered like it was cold, but it was not, and she was warm. Be quiet. Be still, and I'll let you go. Understand? Sally nodded. We lay there wrapped in the warmth of her body heat while the feeding from Big Mike sank into my bones. I don't sleep, not much. Even not before this change. Now I don't sleep at all, unless it is time to be down. At first, Sally just worked on stopping her shivering. After a fashion, she had it down to a shudder. Her breathing became slower and steadier. People want to believe the lie that they will not be harmed. They force themselves to accept the possibility that I won't hurt them. Sally was no different. I shifted position and she jumped. Her heart raced, pounding hard and fast. My bones were moist and did not feel old. The dresser in the room caught my attention. I rose up off of Sally and walked to the wooden piece of furniture. Nice, black leather gloves just lay there, discarded after some adventure outside. The bed creaked. Sally was moving, but not that it mattered. The door was locked and grabbing her before she could open it would be easy. She still had her tied wrists and ankles to deal with too. I looked at her across the room in the mirror and saw her image, but not mine. Not that I reflected very much of one back. Sally raised a shiny black pistol, aimed it at my back, fired, and the gun jerked. I staggered from the surprise, and a second round hit me. Turning her direction, she shot me for a third time, which angered me, so I bared my teeth and started around the bed. Tied feet and all, Sally awkwardly jumped at the window, smashed through it, and landed in the fresh powdered snow. She lay there only a second, but in that second I was outside too. She raised the gun and fired several more rounds. Some even hit me. The warm, helpful neighbors all ran out into their front yards to see what was happening. Gunshots ringing out in the middle of the night was not part of their nice, warm neighborhood. Bright porch lights glared into the moonless night. Some of the neighbors came out with flashlights, while others brought a flashlight in one hand and a gun in the other. I stood in the hated, track-leaving snow. Sally had a glimmer of hope. There were people around now, closing in to help her, so she stopped shooting me. Not that it mattered that she shot me. I was in a bad mood because this commotion cost me a nice, new pair of black leather gloves. She messed that up, and Big Mike's blood was being wasted, dripping from my body. Sally would replace that with her own blood, so I jerked her to her feet. Sally's warm neighbors didn't know what to expect or what the trouble was. They closed in around us to investigate, to watch. They saw me drive my 4 sharp teeth deep into her soft throat and feed. As a group, they shuddered in shock before they reacted. Someone else raised a gun. A rifle fired, then someone else fired, and another. My thin, worn suit began to take damage. Sally's blood surged into me, followed by her warm, helpful neighbor's blood. By then, my suit was too destroyed to keep, so I pulled new clothes from one of the cold neighbors and covered my old bones. The end. Hello, my name is Ryan Neal, and I'm reading Vampire Line Volume 4, Rage and Fury, written by Grant and Mary Workman. There's a light wind which cools the night more than I like. Winter's about to return, but at least it does not feel like snow. It is not a snow-announcing night sky either, just black, moonless, and only a few stars. The cold goes deep into my dry bones as I study the nearby town, smallish and peaceful, away from any major freeways. In the distance, an animal howls and I think about my wolf. She is 10 cities away. She hates me, and that is not good. The wind is picking up like a cold fall rain will soon follow. Outside the house, the front door slaps back and forth in the wind, cracking the door hard against the inside wall. I glance back into the house. The dead couple could not be seen from the doorway. They are in the storm shelter basement. The night before, my old, dry bones fed well, so I slept the day away undisturbed. Well, what passes as sleep for my kind. It is time to move on and find a suitable means of transportation, head out, hit the road, and get more distance from my troubled wolf. I light a cigarette taken from the house, get the tobacco end cherry red, and toss it into the lighter fluid trailing through the house. The Zippo lighter then disappears into my right pants pocket as a sudden wave of heat washes out the front doorway of the house. Something deep in the house's expanse explodes as I walk off the porch. Its contents create pops, crackles, and bursts of burning items. The curved road toward the nearby town beckons. It lies some 6 miles east with nothing but trees and woods between it and this house. On the walk into town, I will not be seen, or at least not noticed. Not like driving into town in a known resident's car. That will cause questions, and I have no patience with people questioning me. I walk unrushed, and I'm not far from the house with its glowing glow from the flames, when headlights come from the upcoming bend. Headlights find me at once, and with almost no pause, the flashing blue and red lights stop the vehicle come to life. Races toward me and stops with a heavy foot on the brake. The powerful engine groans in protest at having to stop. Hey there, buddy. You want to tell me why you're walking around out here at night? The man that gets out of the driver's side is taller than me. His partner, getting out of the other side, is bigger than the sheriff. He has huge muscles pressing against his uniform. And what's with the glow back there near the house? Asked the partner. That would be fire. I smiled at the sheriff. You're close patrolling your town. You shouldn't have seen the glow yet, I wouldn't have thought. What fire? The miller's house is on fire? The partner asks. The sheriff pulls his gun and trains it on me. Hal, run down there and check on them. I raise the hand. No need, Hal. I killed them before setting fire. Hal runs toward the house while the sheriff stares at me. I grin and, slightly stepping forward, fully anticipate the sheriff's action. He fires and the bullet hits me in the chest. The projectile gets ignored as it is not a surprise, so it does not even knock me off balance. I leap at the sheriff. Hal hears the shot and starts back. One strike to the sheriff's head and he is unconscious at my feet. Hal grabs my shoulder, which results in his arm being broken wrist, elbow, and shoulder one motion. He cries out in pain, forcing me to clamp my hand over his mouth and buckle his left knee, putting him on the ground. His heart is racing as my teeth sink into his throat to feed for a brief second before releasing my bite. The twist of his head sharply to one side tears tendons and separating neck joint bones. I spit out his blood, steroids, and spit again, moving on to the sheriff. The sheriff's heart is calm, as bite penetrates his skin to his blood is healthy. However, he has a sugar problem. He is a developing diabetic giving the blood a sweet taste. Even though his blood is healthy, now, it is not hers. Not my wolf's blood. I drain him fast, thinking of her. After collecting their cash and cell phones, both bodies are rolled off the road. Upon entering their vehicle, the annoying flashing lights have got to go, as do the headlights. Ahead, the town waits for me. In my newly acquired cruiser, I will drift up and down the empty streets. My old bones are wet. 3 good feedings in a day, and I want to fight. The flashing neon sign above the bar says live country music and cold beer. This will work. So I take the car to the rear door and back up until no one will have the ability to leave this direction. Exiting the car and using it to jump onto the 1-story roof, I try across to the front. The exterior of the building has a single door and no windows. It's perfect for panic and crowd control. I drop off the roof at the front door. The music is streaming from the place even before opening the door. Upon starting to enter, an older man staggers out the doorway, intent on leaving. At first, I stop him to steady the wobble, and I'm about to bring him back inside, but stop. He smiles, nods for my helping with his balance, pushes me off, and heads back for the door. Instead, I hold the heavy wooden door and let him leave. In the bar is a young waitress talking to the table of customers, regulars if I had to guess, and she sees me. Welcome. She offers a broad smile on her round face. The bar is half full. Where would you like to sit? Maybe a table near the bar? Although, I'll tell you, they're mighty loud tonight. Might be something they're drinking. She grins at her own humor. We got room here, friend. What are you drinking? Sandy, get the man what he wants. This came from one of the people at the table. What's your poison, friend? The waitress asks. Blood, I reply. She scratches at her blonde head of hair with a puzzling look on her face. I'll ask our bartender, but haven't heard of that drink. Who makes it? Or is it a mix? It's the fluid in the human body. I grab her and sink my teeth into her throat as she lets out a scream. All the room looks around, as half the room is already moving to come to her aid. The closest man to us pulls a knife, intending to stab me, so I move the waitress into his path. He screams in shock, more than she does in pain, as his knife finishes her off. I release her, slap the knife away, punch him in the throat, and he falls to his knees choking. Moving on to the next closest person, injuring them, and finding another, and then someone else, leaving damaged beasts in my wake to come back to. A human beast recovers the knife and thrusts at me, only to get that arm broken and my teeth in his neck. The women in the bar are shrieking a thrill. Some are throwing bottles and glasses at me. The bartender tosses a bat to a big man as he himself brings a shotgun up from under the bar countertop. My hand stops the bat, which vibrates it like it has hit a solid post. I take the bat away, and with the butt end pop the beast in the forehead. He falls backward from the hit. The bartender, wielding the shotgun, levels it at me and fires. I pull one of the patrons fighting me into the blast path. What a waste of blood. The second round from the shotgun barrel hits my right shoulder and destroys my ruined jacket just that much more. The bat in my hand proves more useful than the empty gun, so I club the bartender. Men and women start for the front door trying to leave, and a few try the back door that is blocked by the sheriff's cruiser. Those at the front door find that they cannot get past me to escape. Most fight until I take the fight out of them. Some, as they realize, they cannot flee from me, surrender like I am taking prisoners or hostages. Those that surrender move quickly to one corner upon my order to do so. The bar is mine, and I begin to feed well as the cold night wind blows outside. I feed and receive no more fight from these patrons, which enrages me more than if they fight till the last person. My old bones are wet, and I want to fight. I kick the damaged ones as I walk around the room until most of all the patrons are emptied of their valve, their blood. There is one person left huddling in the furthest corner away from me. She has cried until there are no tears left and shudders at my approach. "Why?" she asks as I stop in front of her. "Why did you do this? Why didn't you stop fighting to live?" "How could I stop you? They couldn't. What are you?" I smile and my jaw cracks like it does sometimes. You know the answer to that. I kneel in front of her. "What's your name?" "Robin. Please don't kill me." She cannot move any further away from me and the wall she's against, but she is trying. If she could push through the brick and mortar building, my little Robin would fly. "Do you have family here?" She nods. With a shaking hand, she points at the big man that used to bat, then points to the bartender. "My husband and dad. They fought well as your kind can against my kind." Robin finds her strength. I watched the words hit her harder than any physical blow from me could have. Robin's tiny fists ball up, and she punches me in the face. "I don't want to hear that," she screams at me. "I don't want to know they died well. I want them here alive." Her temper flares high. Robin strikes again, forgetting who or what she is facing. You will want to remember those words in the years to come. They might bring you just a little comfort in the dead of night. I catch her next fist and jerk her to me, sinking my teeth deep into her flesh until Robin's tiny heart stops. I rake my right index finger across the sharp edge of my teeth, open her lifeless lips, and run my bleeding finger across her teeth and tongue. Filling her lungs with what passes as air for us gives Robin a second breath which expands her chest. Her heart pumps as my blood rolls down her throat and she gasps. Her eyes snap open. She screams and thrashes about to get away from me. I hold her against the wall until she calms down. "What have you done to me?" She tries to spit the blood out of her mouth. I won't help. I stand up and step back. "You're one of us now, better than the human beasts." "I don't want to be like you. Look what you did." Robin swings an arm across the area, indicating the dead people in the bar. "You killed all of us people." I fed. "As you will." Moving another step away from Robin, I wait for a reaction that is soon to come. "Never. I'll never be like you." She runs to her dead husband and cradles his broken body to her chest. He fought hard to protect her, I would guess, if it matters to me to guess. I had broken him, a lot of his bones before ending him. At first, Robin cries, sobbing into his shirt. I notice it before she does, but his still warm blood is running over his shirt and onto her cheek. It touches the corner of her mouth and her tongue finds it. She licks the red liquid until she realizes what she is doing and drops him from her grip with a sharp yell, "I hate you!" and twists to face me. Who cares? It's a very long list to join. I head toward the back door. "It won't open," Robin says with a smile. "That's why some of us didn't get away." I know. I blocked it. With a good grip on the door, I jerk the door and frame out of the wall. Robin jumps to her feet. How? We are stronger than they are. The hole in the wall gives us direct access to the sheriff's vehicle. I move over the trunk to the driver's door. "Come along, hurry." "I'm not going with you." "Fine, but you can't stay in the bar. Be sure you're under good cover before sunrise, or the sun will end your existence." I open the car door. "But you know that now, don't you? The genetic knowledge passed on through the transfer told you about the sun, right?" "Wait, you can't leave. You can't do this to me and just leave." "You need to leave the bar now. Whether you come with me or not is up to you, but you can't stay here." Robin folds her arms and stares at me. Why not? Smiling is now easy. My bones are well wet, and I have no pain. I extract the Zippo lighter, strike it, and toss the tiny metal box into one of the many pools of alcohol from the broken bottles and spilled drinks. The bar ignites quickly and is hot in a flash. The flames force Robin to abandon the bar and join me outside. I smile at her, climb into the car, and start it up. Gunning the engine with the brake on, the tires smoke, but the car only rocks and does not advance forward. Robin makes her decision and pulls on the locked handle of the passenger door. I wait until she taps on the glass before unlocking the door and letting her in. The sheriff's cruiser has a powerful engine, so we speed away up the street as the bar explodes. Fuming mad at me from the passenger seat, Robin finally looks over at me. What's your name? Andrew. The end.